Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into something crucial for anyone prepping for their LPN exam, the urinary system.
That's right. It's a big one.
Yeah, and we're focusing our lens on Chapter 17 of Anatomy and Physiology for Health Professions, the fourth edition by Colbert. Think of this as our mission to pull out the absolute must-know info for you.
Exactly. Not just facts to memorize, but really understanding how it all clicks together. The goal is to build that solid foundation. It's key for the exam, obviously, but also just for being a great LPN.
Couldn't agree more. When you get the why, the what sticks so much better, doesn't it?
Definitely.
So, okay, the urinary system, why is it such a big deal? Well, it's basically the body's master chemist, balancing fluids, electrolytes.
And getting rid of all that metabolic junk. Waste removal, yeah.
Yeah.
Critical for homeostasis, keeping everything stable inside.
Right, that internal balance. So, today, we'll walk through the anatomy, how it all works, the physiology, and touch on some common problems you'll definitely see. Ready to jump into the kidney itself, the structure.
Let's do it. So the kidneys, everyone knows that bean shape, right? But their location is interesting, retroperitoneal.
Retroperitoneal,
Yeah.
meaning behind that main abdominal lining.
Exactly. Behind the peritoneum, gives them a bit of protection, tucked back there. Now, if you slice one open, you see definite zones. The outer layer, that's the renal cortex.
Okay, cortex outside.
And then deeper in, you have the renal medulla. It's got these cone-shaped bits.
And connecting that to the exit route is their renal pelvis.
Spot on. The renal pelvis is like the funnel at the top of the ureter, the tube carrying urine away. And inside the pelvis, you've got these cup-like things called major calyces.
Helices, like little collecting cups.
Pretty much. They gather the urine coming from the main kidney tissue. And the whole kidney is wrapped in this tough layer, the renal capsule, fibrous connective tissue.
So like a protective skin.
Got it.
And what about the hilum? That sounds important.
Oh, it is. The hilum is the doorway, basically. It's this indented area where everything goes in and out. The renal artery brings blood in.
To be filtered?
Right. And the renal vein takes the cleaned blood out. Plus, the ureter starts right there, too. It's a central hub.
Okay, that gives us the big picture. But the real magic happens smaller, right? At the nephron level.
Absolutely. The nephron, that's the star of the show. The chapter calls it the fundamental functional unit, and it mentions its huge surface area.
Why is that so key, the large surface area?
Well, think about what it needs to do. Filter blood, pull back the good stuff, dump the waste. You need a massive area for all that exchange to happen efficiently. Millions of these tiny processing units in each kidney.
Wow. Okay, so what makes up a nephron?
It starts with the renal corpuscle. Two main parts here. The glomerulus and the glomerular capsule, which you might know as Bowman's capsule.
Glomerulus, that's the knot of capillaries, isn't it? Blood vessels doing kidney work.
Exactly. It's technically circulatory, but essential for urine formation.
Yeah.
Blood flows in through the afferent arteriole.
Afferent arise. That's how I remember it.
Perfect. And it leaves via the efferent arteriole. Now, wrapped around this capillary ball is Bowman's capsule. It's a double-layered cup.
And the inner layer has special cells. Podocytes.
Yes, podocytes. The chapter highlights them. They have these little feet that wrap around the glomerular capillaries, forming part of the filtration membrane.
So the blood pushes fluid through this membrane into the capsule. What exactly is the membrane made of?
It's super thin, basically, the capillary walls in those podocytes. The key thing the chapter notes is it has fixed openings, like tiny pores.
Fenestrations, right.
Right. Allows water and small dissolved things, salts, glucose, urea, to pass through easily because of the pressure difference. But big things like proteins and blood cells, they normally stay behind in the blood.
So the stuff that gets through the glomerular filtrate, it's like blood plasma, but without the big proteins?
Pretty much, yeah. Chemically very similar. Think of it like making coffee with the filter paper. The water and dissolved coffee flavor go through, but the grounds stay behind.
Good analogy. Okay, so we have this filtrate in Bowman's capsule. Where does it go next? The renal tubule.
Exactly. This long, twisty tube. And it's not just one uniform tube. It has distinct sections doing different jobs. First up is the proximal convoluted tubule, or PCT.
Proximal, meaning close to the start.
Yep. And the chapter stresses this is where the majority of reabsorption and secretion happens. It's grabbing back most of the valuable stuff, like glucose and amino acids, and actively pumping out some waste. Super busy section.
Okay, the main processing hub. Then what?
Then the filtrate dives into the nephron loop, the loop of Henle. It has a descending part and an ascending part.
On that up.
Right. and their jobs are different. The descending limb, the chapter says, is really permeable to water. Water gets pulled out here into the salty medulla.
Makes the filtrate more concentrated.
Exactly. Now, the ascending limb, this is important, especially for exams. There's a true-false point in the chapter. The ascending loop is permeable only to water, and that's marked false.
Ah, so it's not just water. What does it do then?
It actively pumps out salt, sodium, and chloride ions. It's impermeable to water, mostly, so it's pushing salt out, which helps maintain that salty environment in the medulla that pulls water out of the descending limb. And later, the collecting duct.
Okay, so descending loop, water out. Ascending loop, salt out, water stays in. Got it. That's a key difference. After the loop.
Filtrate moves into the distal convoluted tubule, or DCT. More fine-tuning happens here, some more reabsorption, some more secretion, often under hormonal control. It's like the quality control step.
Adjusting based on what the body needs right then.
Precisely. And then several DCTs drain into a collecting duct. These ducts run down through the medulla, gather urine from many nephrons, and finally empty into those major calyces in the renal pelvis we talked about earlier.
And the collecting ducts can also adjust water levels, right? Depending on hormones.
Absolutely. Their permeability to water is highly regulated. We'll definitely get into those hormones.
Okay, that's the journey of the filtrate. But none of this works without the blood supply constantly interacting with the nephron. You mentioned the close proximity.
Oh, it's critical. The chapter details how the renal artery branches out. It goes renal artery to segmented arteries, then interlobar arteries running between the pyramids, then arcuate arteries that curve over the pyramids, and finally, tiny interlobular arteries, also called cortical radii arteries, spreading out into the cortex.
It's quite a branching pattern, like a tree reaching every leaf.
Exactly. Ensures every single nephron gets blood delivered right next to its tubules. This closeness is vital for reabsorption, getting good stuff back into the blood, and secretion dumping waste from the blood into the tubule.
It's a constant back and forth.
Continuous exchange. Then all that filtered blood collects and leaves the kidney through the renal vein.
Right, okay. Anatomy, nephron structure, blood supply. Check.
Mm.
Now let's really focus on how urine is made. The chapter says 3 key processes. Filtration, reabsorption, secretion.
That's the core of it. Filtration, we've touched on blood pressure, forcing fluid and small solutes from the glomerulus into Bowman's capsule.
Driven by pressure. And that rate, the GFR, can change.
Yes, glomerular filtration rate. It's tightly regulated, as we'll see. So filtration is step 1. Stuff moves from blood to tubule.
Then reabsorption must be moving things back the other way, tuvule to blood.
Exactly. Rescuing the valuable stuff. Water, ions, nutrients. The chapter gives glucose as a prime example normally. 100% of filtered glucose gets pulled back into the blood, mainly in the PCT. The body doesn't want to waste sugar.
Makes sense. And it involves concentration gradients too, like salt moving from high to low concentration.
Yep. Both passive movement down gradients and active transport requiring energy are involved in reabsorption, taking back what the body needs.
Okay, filter, then reclaim. What's secretion then? Is that adding more waste?
Precisely. Secretion is moving specific substances like excess potassium, hydrogen ions, drug metabolites from the blood directly into the tubule fluid. It's another way to get rid of unwanted stuff.
So an extra dumping mechanism.
Right. And the chapter makes a great point. Anything that messes with reabsorption or secretion is going to change what ends up in the final urine. Its chemistry depends heavily on these processes.
That makes total sense. Now, the kidney doesn't just do this on autopilot, right? It's regulated. Let's talk about controlling that glomerular filtration rate, GFR. The chapter mentions autoregulation.
Yeah, autoregulation is pretty cool. It's the kidney's own ability to keep GFR stable even if your blood pressure bumps up or down a bit. It does this mainly by adjusting the width of that incoming arteriole, the afferent one.
How does that work?
Well, if blood pressure rises slightly, the afferent arteriole constricts a bit to limit flow into the glomerulus, preventing GFR from shooting up. If pressure drops a bit, it dilates to let more blood in, keeping GFR steady. It protects the glomerulus.
A local balancing act?
Right.
But what if blood pressure changes drastically, like really drops?
Then autoregulation can be overwhelmed. As the chapter notes, a significant decrease in blood pressure will lead to a decrease in GFR. It's a way to conserve body fluid. And conversely, if GFR somehow gets too high, you tend to make more urine.
Okay. What about outside influences, like stress, the fight or flight response?
Ah, yes. The sympathetic nervous system kicks in then. And hormones from the adrenal medulla, epinephrine, norepinephrine. The chapter says these cause vasoconstrictions, specifically of the afferent arterioles.
Squeezing them shut.
Pretty much. Reduces blood flow into the glomerulus, which decreases GFR. It's part of redirecting blood to muscles and the brain during stress. And it also helps raise overall blood pressure.
Okay, nervous system input. But there are specific hormones focused just on kidney function too, right? RAS, ADH, aldosterone, quite a few.
Oh yeah, it's a hormonal symphony. Let's start with RAAS, the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. This is huge for blood pressure control.
How does it start?
It kicks off when specialized cells in the nephron, the juxtaglomerular apparatus, sense low blood pressure or low sodium. They release an enzyme called renin.
Okay, renin's out. Then what?
Renin finds a protein in the blood called angiotensinogen made by the liver and chops it into angiotensin I. Angiotensin I isn't super active yet.
Needs another step.
Exactly. It gets converted to angiotensin II by AC angiotensin converting enzyme, mostly found in the lungs. And angiotensin II is the real powerhouse.
ACE inhibitors.
Yeah.
Those are common blood pressure meds, right? They block this step.
Precisely. And the chapter even hints at this. Someone lacking ACE would likely have lower thirst and lower blood pressure because angiotensin II does a bunch of things to raise blood pressure.
Like what? What does angiotensin II do?
Well, it's a potent vasoconstrictor itself, squeezing blood vessels everywhere. It makes you thirsty. And crucially, it tells the adrenal cortex, the outer part of the adrenal gland sitting on top of the kidney, to release aldosterone.
Aldosterone. Another hormone. What's its job?
Aldosterone targets the distal tubules and collecting duct. Its main effect, the chapter states, is cranking up sodium reabsorption. It tells the kidneys to pull more sodium back into the blood.
And water follows sodium.
You got it. Water follows passively by osmosis. So more sodium reabsorbed means more water reabsorbed. That increases your blood volume and consequently your blood pressure. The chapter also notes if the adrenal cortex is damaged, regulating sodium and potassium becomes a big problem.
So RAAS is all about raising blood pressure and volume. What about ADH? Antidiuretic hormone. Sounds like it stops urination.
Kind of, yeah. ADH, or vasopressin, is the main water regulator. Important note from the chapter. It's made in the hypothalamus and released from the posterior pituitary gland, not the kidneys themselves.
Okay, pituitary hormone, how does it work?
ADH makes the collecting ducts and distal tubules more permeable to water. It basically inserts little water channels, aquaporins, into the cell walls.
So water can leave the filtrate more easily.
Exactly. More water gets reabsorbed back into the blood. This boosts blood volume and pressure, and it makes the urine more concentrated because less water is being excreted. Lack of ADH causes diabetes insipidus, tons of dilute urine.
And the chapter mentions alcohol inhibits ADH. Explains why you pee more when drinking.
That's the mechanism. Less ADH means the collecting ducts don't reabsorb as much water, so more goes out as urine, leading to dehydration.
Okay, ADH saves water.
Uh-huh.
Is there anything that does the opposite, makes you produce more urine?
Yes. Atrial natriuretic hormone, ANH. The chapter says it generally does the opposite of ADH and aldosterone.
Atrial, from the heart.
Yep, released by the heart's atria when they get stretched by high blood volume or pressure. ANH basically tells the kidneys to dump salt and water. It inhibits renin and aldosterone, relaxes the efferent arterioles a bit to increase GFR, and reduces sodium reabsorption.
So it lowers blood volume and pressure. It's like the counterbalance.
Exactly. It's this constant interplay between these hormones that keeps everything in balance. The chapter also briefly touches on vasoconstriction in the kidney again.
Right, saying it's usually hormonal to raise blood pressure.
But warns that if it goes on too long, it can cause ischemia. Lack of oxygen to the kidney tissue because of poor blood flow. That's a serious risk.
Definitely something to watch for. Okay, let's move down the tract. After the kidneys make the urine, where does it go?
Travels down the ureter's 2 tubes, one from each kidney, to the urinary bladder.
The bladder is just a storage tank.
Essentially, yes. A muscular, stretchy bag. The muscle is called the detrusor muscle. It can hold quite a bit of urine thanks to folds called rugae. Then, when it's time to go, urine leaves through the single tube called the urethra.
And the chapter points out the urethra is shorter in women.
Significantly shorter, which unfortunately makes it easier for bacteria to travel up into the bladder. Hence why UTIs, urinary tract infections, are much more common in women. That's a key clinical point.
Absolutely crucial for patient teaching.
Yeah.
Okay, the actual process of urinating micturition, how is that controlled? Is it just automatic?
No, it's a mix. There's a basic spinal reflex, but it's usually overridden by voluntary control from the brain, specifically the pons. As the bladder fills, stretch receptors signal the brain.
Giving you the urge.
Right. But the pons normally inhibits the reflex that would make the bladder contract, and the internal sphincter, smooth muscle, involuntary relax. We consciously decide when to go by relaxing the external sphincter, which is skeletal muscle, under our control.
So brain control lets us choose the time and place. The chapter also clarifies the urge isn't from muscle contraction, but from the stretch.
Correct. It's the stretching bladder wall sending the signal. Then urine flows out through the urethra.
Okay, makes sense. Now let's shift to problems common urinary system disorders mentioned in the chapter, UTIs we touched on.
Yeah, often caused by fecal bacteria like E. coli getting where they shouldn't. And remember, the key diagnostic point. Healthy urine is sterile. Finding bacteria in a urine sample is a big sign of infection.
Good point. Kidney stones. Ouch.
Definitely painful. They form when substances like calcium oxalate or uric acid crystallize in the tubules. Passing them causes severe pain, often in the flank radiating down, and often hematuria blood in the urine because the stones can scrape the lining.
Hydration helps prevent them, right?
Very important. Then there's polycystic kidney disease.
That sounds serious.
It is. It's genetic. Lots of fluid-filled cysts grow in the kidneys, eventually destroying normal tissue and leading to kidney failure. The chapter sadly notes the only cure currently is a transplant or lifelong dialysis.
Wow. What about ischemic nephropathy? We mentioned ischemia.
Right, that's kidney damage from lack of blood flow, lack of oxygen. The chapter uses severe blood loss as an example. If the body loses a lot of blood, the kidneys might not get enough, causing injury. It's different from damage caused by chronic high blood pressure itself, though hypertension is also bad for kidneys long term.
And diabetes can harm kidneys too. Diabetic nephropathy.
A major complication, yes. Chronic high blood sugar from diabetes mellitus damages the tiny blood vessels in the glomeruli. Over time, this messes up filtration and can lead to kidney failure. Tight blood sugar control is vital.
Okay. Hemolytic uremic syndrome is also listed.
HUS. That's nasty. Red blood cells get destroyed, platelets drop, and acute kidney failure happens. The chapter mentions it can be triggered by certain E. coli infections, sometimes from contaminated, undercooked meat.
Scary. We talked about hypertension being bad for the kidneys. Is it a major risk factor?
Hugely important, the chapter stresses. High blood pressure pounds away at those delicate glomerular vessels. It's a leading cause of kidney failure. And it's often a two-way street. Kidney disease can also cause or worsen hypertension.
A vicious cycle. And the chapter mentions a sobering fact about outcomes.
Yeah, that most patients with kidney disease actually die from cardiovascular problems. Shows how tightly linked the kidneys and heart health are.
Finally, what if someone has a lot of protein in their urine? Proteinuria.
That usually means the filter is damaged. The glomerular filtration barrier, which normally keeps proteins in the blood, has become leaky, allowing protein to spill into the filtrate and end up in the urine. It's often an early warning sign of kidney trouble.
Okay, this has been incredibly detailed. So, boiling it all down for someone studying for their LPN exam, what are the absolute core takeaways from this chapter?
Right. Key points. Definitely know the kidney anatomy, especially the nephron, glomerulus, tubules, loop, collecting duct, and what each part does. Master the three processes: filtration, reabsorption, secretion, what happens where, what moves.
Filter, reclaim, dump.
Exactly. Hormonal control is big. RAAS, ADH, aldosterone, ANH. Understand how they influence blood pressure, volume, and urine output. Know the common disorders we just discussed: UTIs, stones, PKD, diabetic nephropathy, their basic causes and implications. And the lower tract basics: ureters, bladder, urethra, micturition.
Being able to really distinguish between filtration, reabsorption, and secretion sounds critical.
Absolutely fundamental. If you grasp those processes and how hormones affect them, you're in good shape.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, it's clear the urinary system is, well, just incredibly complex, but also elegantly designed, keeping everything in balance.
It really is amazing. And understanding it isn't just for the test, it's foundational for recognizing what's going on with your patients.
Exactly. That knowledge lets you connect the dots in real-world situations.
Definitely helps with critical thinking on the job.
Okay, here's a final thought to chew on as you study. We know the big signs of kidney trouble, like changes in urine. But given how central the kidneys are to overall homeostasis, what are some subtle, maybe non-specific clues a sharp nurse might pick up on early, possibly hinting at underlying kidney dysfunction before it becomes obvious?
That's a great question for reflection. Thinking beyond just the urinary symptoms, what else might change in the body if the kidneys aren't working perfectly?
Something to consider. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this urinary system deep dive. We really hope this helps solidify things for your LPN exam.
Best of luck with your studies and your future career. You've got this.